Montreal is burning. Sparks are flying, but rumors are flying faster. Fingers are pointing. And at the center is one individual. She is black, she is a woman, and she is a slave. This is 18th century Montreal. Marie-Joseph Angelique is thrice damned. Que je respire l'odeur de nos morts, que je recueille et redise leur voix vivante, que j'apprenne à vivre avant de descendre au-delà du plongeur, dans les hautes profondeurs du sommeil. Marie-Joseph Angelique, daughter, mother, slave. For 9 years, she works in the Francheville home. She disrupts their home, she fights with her mistress, she runs away, she sets fires.
People were convinced that she was the arsonist because of what transpired before the fire. Madame Francheville had sent her and Claude Thibault, who was in her employ, to the house of her cousin, Sir Monier. And Angelique and Thibault tried burning down Monier's house. I mean, they admitted to that.
Here we have in 1734, in April of 1734, a good chunk of Montreal burning down, some 45 houses, 45, 46. There's this popular will to find a scapegoat, and the rumor that's running around is that this Marie Angelique can be pinpointed as one of the usual suspects in a case like this.
I said, why not? Like, why wouldn't she burn down the house? Why wouldn't you burn down the house? Why wouldn't I burn down the house? I mean, we have nothing to lose. An enslaved woman really had nothing to lose. It was not her house. It was the house of her bondage.
It takes only a day after the fire for Angelique to be arrested and charged. The law in New France allows suspects to be arrested based on rumors.
Angelique would not have had a fair trial. She wouldn't have. I mean, the odds were stacked against her. She was going to die. You know, Angelique must die.
Testimony is presented by men, women, and children. Most accuse Angelique of setting the fire. No one claims to have been an eyewitness, but they are all certain she did it.
She also has a history of being a rather rebellious or independent slave, which also plays against her favor. Perhaps a slave who had been less troublesome would less easily have been pinpointed as a scapegoat.
Although I may be miserable, I am not wretched enough to do an act like this. I do not know if the fire started inside. When I heard a cry of fire, I was outside. I saw the roof on fire. It was on the side of Sir Addison's chimney.
I know not who set the fire in my house. I went up there with her on the morning before the fire, but I have no knowledge that she went up there after, unless it was while I was at church for the Holy Sacrament.
She went around Montreal telling people what she was going to do to them and meeting people by the river and telling them that she was leaving. And they said, but where are you going, Angelique? And she said, well, I'm going back to Portugal. And people are like, this girl is mad.
The judge bases his conviction on the testimony of Madame Francheville's 5-year-old niece.
Is that child to be trusted, or did that child only suffer the pressures of others who were looking for a scapegoat, of a society who thought that Marie-Angelique was guilty?
Marie-Joseph Angelique is condemned to have her fist severed. Then she will be taken to a public place, bound to the stake with irons, shackles, and burned alive. Her body will be reduced to ash and cast to the winds.
What was she thinking as the sentence was passed down? Was she thinking of her beloved Portugal? Maybe she had family there. Maybe it was the last place she felt happy.
And, you know, she was young and she had children and she desired to be free and she ran away from her mistress. She was a slave, but she did not have a servile mind.
At age 20, Angelique was sold away from the place of her birth, Portugal, the only place she had ever known.
We do know that she ended up in New York. She was sold by her Dutch owner in 1725 to Sir Francheville, the Frenchman, who is from Montreal.
She is afraid she'll be sold off to a plantation in the West Indies.
So Mrs. Francheville can just sell the chair to her friend or her cousin in Quebec City and ship off the chair. So that was Angelique, like this chair, except that she was human. You know, so that's the difference. The chair is an inanimate object. People are not. So she can speak and she can act and she can think and she has agency. And I think it came down to that in the end, her agency. And what is it that I'm going to do to gain some control over my life and not be just being shipped around the continent at the whim of white people.
In the 18th century, fires are inevitable in large cities. They are a part of everyday concern.
You need fire to provide lighting, you need fire to provide heat, to heat yourself or to cook. So there are fires constantly burning in the town.
In Montreal, citizens are required by law to have firefighting equipment, leather buckets, ladders.
Widow Francheville's neighbor was someone who had been fined in the past for not having properly swept his chimney, and that's an alternative explanation to the origin of the fire.
The evidence is weak, the testimony dubious. Nevertheless, Angelique is found guilty. On appeal, the judges offer a scrap of mercy. The sentence is reduced.
Marie-Joseph Angelique is condemned to make honorable amends. Disrobe, holding in her hands a torch and on her knees. She will confess and ask forgiveness from God, the King, and the court. This done, she will be hanged until dead. Her dead body will be placed on a flaming pyre and burned. Her ash shall be cast to the wind.
She was going to die. You know, Angelique must die. She had transgressed on so many levels.
Angelique had once walked these streets, said hello to the street vendors, chatted up the men, maybe flirted or shared a sip of brandy with them. Now she feels the icy cobblestones against her bare feet as she walks with a torch in her hands. She feels the cold spring wind through her shirt as she is carried toward her death. She makes her confession. She is hanged. This is justice in 1734. But maybe for Angelique, this is her final freedom.
Canada has constructed itself as so separate from and different from the United States, a slave-holding, vicious society. We're not that. We're good, we're clean, we're the last terminus on the Underground Railroad. And it was happening right here in Canada. You know, under the French regime, at the time when what we call Canada was a French colony, but happening here nonetheless. It's a story that could have happened and did happen to other people. In Jamaica, in Brazil, in Virginia, in Argentina, you know, wherever. But it happened here.